Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd as well as yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Well, today is a quick crash course on how to read a pattern. Now, I'm requested to do this virtually every day, and so I kind of avoid the question because a lot of learning how to read a pattern is about practice and making yourself learn. Now, I will tell you, in the very beginning of the Crochet Crowd, way back in 2008, I never knew how to read a pattern. I'll be very honest with you. I was one of those diagram people. So when you could see a diagram just like so I'd be all over it like a dirty shirt. But the fact is that after the first year, I kept getting email after email of people asking for help, but I couldn't really understand this because I was a diagram reader and I learned how to do the diagrams when I was a kid. And of course, I'm stubborn as a mule, so I really want to have a diagram anytime that I can do, and I still prefer that today. So this is an example of a pattern from yarnspirations.com. It's called the Stripe Crochet Afghan. And this is a great example of a simple kind of pattern to be able to learn from. And you can really get an idea of what you need to do in order to work on this particular piece. So every pattern usually has a level on what it is. So when I say every pattern, I mean people like the big companies and a lot of the big publishers. They have a standard, and it's usually by the Yarn Craft Council of America, where things that you're seeing in here are a standard, and it makes it a lot easier. So if you're even looking at a different yarn company or a different pattern maker, is that a lot of what you're seeing here is pretty close. The abbreviations are all identical, but each company has their own way of writing a pattern, and it's called technical editing. So the technical editor has a way of writing things so that it's always consistent, and each one of the companies has their own way. So for every pattern, for example, you have usually a level, and this is easy. So the first bar is beginner, easy, intermediate, and what's advanced. I don't think it's advanced, the big one. It's the one that scares the crap out of everybody. And then there's one that is kind of a joke. It's not a standard. It's called Oh My God. And we've seen a few of those on Yarnspirations for sure. I think the Butterfly Afghan is one of those. So beginners, you would start off, but this is considered easy, and because it's a little bit of some footwork, but it's not difficult for experienced crocheter. So you'll find that helps you a lot. It tells you the size. Now the gauge here is really important for when you're doing clothing, but this is an Afghan. If I'm a little bit tighter on my stitches, I'm still going to end up with an Afghan, but the gauge does matter because it's the gauge that gives you the yarn quantities when you are working with the pattern. So that is important, but for scarves and stuff, I don't worry about it too much. I always make sure I have extra yarn because, that's just the kind of guy I am. And so we look back and we go down here. It's the materials, and it tells you exactly how much material is in there. Now, the wonderful thing I like about these patterns is that it tells you the ball size, or the skein, if you prefer the word skein. It tells you the skein size so that you can actually go shopping, and it will tell you how many yards. So if you have to substitute this yarn for maybe a Bernat Super Value instead, you can look at the yardage on what this was asking for. You won't get the same look, and nor will you get the same kind of results, but you'll get the exact same pattern. Okay, so it kind of gives you an idea of what you're doing, and then so it tells you how many ball counts that you're going to need in order to make this particular project, and then it tells you the size hook. Now here in Canada, and I think the UK, well, I'm pretty 100%, is that we use metric. So our hook sizes are considered in the metric. So we use 8mm. You hear me say 5mm a lot, 6.5mm. But for our American friends, it's like size US, and so it's represented usually by a letter, okay, or sometimes it's a /11. So this is an L size /8. So for me, being Canadian, I actually have to remember both sides because most of the patterns that we find online are Americanized, and many of them, except for the big large companies, they don't really tell you how many millimeters a hook is. So that helps you there. So the abbreviations that are used inside here are usually represented by what is called a key. And the key will tell you exactly what all of those are. Now on the crochetcrowd.com, I don't provide that key in most of the stuff that we do. And the reason for it is that I try to use, most of the time, don't bet on it, I try to use these abbreviations that make sense. And these are by the Yarn Craft Council. and basically we try to keep everything the same. So sometimes a new crocheter comes along and she thinks she's a designer and she starts creating abbreviations that are not standard, and then you start questioning in the pattern what the hell's going on, and you start questioning what is going on. So basically these abbreviations can be found on the Yarn Craft Council, but you can also really find them on any mega website as well, what those are. And usually what you find in a key is representative to what you will find in this pattern. So everything that you see here will be here in some fashion. So continuing along with the instructions, so when we go on there, when it says with A, so what is A? So A is represented by the color. So when it says to change color, it says with B, well, that's B. So if you're going to substitute your yarns and you say contrast A is red and contrast B is blue, then your A then would be red and then B would be blue. Okay, so that is just representation, representing that. So the very first instruction with A, chain 85. So how did I know that was chain? Well, that's because I'm gifted, honey. No, not really. It's down here in the key. So CH means chain. So the reason why they use abbreviations like this, because if you have to spell the word chain and you have to spell all of these words every time it's used, this pattern could be 2 pages long for something so simple. So this is almost like, I consider it like hieroglyphics maybe for Egypt, is that they had their own way of speaking. So I feel like I can actually speak another language or read another language just by using the techniques here. So it says we chained 85. So the first row, did you notice that it does not say first row with A chain 85? It usually most of the major patterns that the first chaining area never counts as a row. Okay, it's only the first chain. I'm not sure why that is, but I like it. Okay, so I'm not going to argue that. So the first row, okay, it says RS. Well, what is RS? It's the right side according to this. And what is the right side? The right side is the good side of a project. So for example, when you are crocheting along, and say you're right-handed and you crochet along, you're looking at the right side of the finished project. But as soon as you turn that around and that project, you're looking at the wrong side, which is represented by a WS. Now, it says here, it doesn't say WS here because it doesn't ever address wrong side. So it's just telling you right in the first row what is your right side that you're going to be looking at. So it says 2 double crochets in the 5th chain from the hook. Okay, so basically you are going to put 2 double crochets, so you have to go on your chain and count to the 5th chain and put in 2 double crochet. Now there's information here in the brackets and it says turning chain counts as a double crochet and chain 1 space. Well, in the rules of crochet, usually chaining of 3 says that that's a double crochet, and so when it says that you're going in the 5th chain of the hook, you really actually, because chaining of 3 counts as a double crochet, the 5th would mean that you were doing a lot more than you should be. So it's telling you that the turning chain counted as a double crochet and a chain 1. So now it has an asterisk. And the asterisk is basically telling you what is the repeat. So just think about, you get to it's like a skipping record. So you will start the instructions that are in the asterisk. So skip the next chain, 2 double crochet in the next chain, and repeat asterisk to last 2 chain. Okay, so basically it's telling you that the asterisk from here to here is going to be the repeat all the way. So I keep repeating that, and it says to the last 2 chains. So that means that I'm going to end up with 2 chains at the end of this, and then it says skip next chain and double crochet in the last chain, and then turn. And this is telling you how many stitches will be there. Why do you see a difference between chain 85 and 82? The difference is that it told you to go 2 double crochets 5th chain of the hook. When you did that, you were actually eliminating some of the chains out, therefore you're eliminating some of the stitches when you're doing that, so you're only really having a thing of 82 at the end. So that's normal. So for example, say you had a chain 86 and it said single crochet first chain or second chain from the hook, that means you'll have a chain of 85. So now it says to turn and a period, and that's it. So you're going to turn and you're going to go to your second row. So it says to do in the second row chain 3, which counts as a double crochet, and look, there's an asterisk again. So in this instruction, 2 double crochets in space between the next 2 double crochets, and repeat asterisk ending. Okay, so basically I'm not even going to worry about the ending part yet. I'm just going to go to the asterisks. So it says 2 double crochet in space, and of course everything is down here, is in space between the next 2 double crochets. So it's not telling you to go into a double crochet. It's not telling you to go 2 double crochets into the next stitch. It's telling you to go to a space. So that means that I'm going to have to put 2 double crochets between 2 double crochets itself. It's kind of unusual, but if you look at the pattern, you'll see that effect happening there. And then it says repeat the asterisks, and then you keep repeating that and repeating that, and it says ending with 1 double crochet in the third chain, in the third chain of turning chain. And the reason for it, if you remember that you did 2 double crochets in the 5th chain of the hook, and that counted as a turning chain and as a double crochet in chain 1, that's telling you that you're doing 1 double crochet in the 3rd chain of the turning chain, because there's actually 5 chains because of the way that you did it up here. So you just have to really look where the periods are and going so forth. So it says join C and then turn, and then join C. What is C? Is the color. So you keep changing colors over and over and over as the way you go. So for row number 3, it says with C as second row. So with C as second row, it's telling you to repeat and go back to the second row and repeat that once again. And then it says join B. So at the end of this, instead of joining C, you're joining B this time. And then it says 4th and 5th rows with B as second row and join with C. So you just have to really kind of look at the instructions, and then with C as the second row. So the second row is the critical thing in this whole thing. And then with 7 through 10 with A as second row. Okay, so you can kind of really see here when you really look at it that there's a difference of the striping, and that's why there's a difference of the rows. And you have to keep doing this over and over and over as you're going all the way down. And so it's really telling you to really continue. So in the end, it says to repeat the stripe pattern. So you're continuing to keep going then, repeat stripe pattern and to fasten off. And you have to keep doing this until you get to about 60 inches in width. So this is kind of a really interesting concept when you're doing this kind of thing. So it's all about looking for the asterisks, it's looking for the periods, and just really deciphering what is in the abbreviations, what is the color, and just taking it step by step. The only way to truly read a pattern is to just take it step by step. It's like trying to eat an elephant, not literally, but the only way to eat it is piece by piece. And the only way to learn how to do crochet patterns like this is to take step by step, read the instructions, use a highlighter, and then when I usually am done a row, I put a check mark, and then I'm done, and then I put a check mark. I write on my patterns. Some people think that's unholy. I do it for myself because if I ever want to do this again, I can know that if I have any notes or I was confused at some point, I can highlight something, I can write on my notes and say, you know, this is what this meant. But always look at that picture if you think you're not doing it right in order to create the same kind of look. So that's how you really kind of read a pattern. It's, you know, all patterns are different, but you just got to take it step by step. There's no easy way other than for you just to continue to try and don't let it kick your butt in the end. Till next time, I'm Mikey on behalf of the crochetcrowd.com. We'll see you.